creating a big net worth, that's fine as a goal, but I think it has to have the right reasons behind it, or else it's gonna do more bad than good.
We spend our money on things that give us status, which is the house, the car, the clothes. If you get to a point where you have millions and millions of dollars saved, your 60s, 70s, and your health goes, and you never get to enjoy it, then it's like, why'd you do all that?
They're like, oh, I saved 20 grand on my taxes this year, but they don't know that they're building like a snowball or kind of a bigger problem later.
How do we live a life without regret? The biggest financial regret of super high net worth people was like, I just wish I. Welcome everybody. Today joined by Jamison and Chris. We're talking about one of the perspectives we have with working in financial planning for so long is, talking to people that have accumulated a lot of wealth and preserving it. And I think perspective can lead to a lot of good framework for decision making on what to do or what not to do. For younger clients, and then also for some people that are struggling with like the adage of the best savers are the worst spenders. So kind of giving yourself permission to start spending and enjoying life. So, Chris, what's the first one? So we're talking, and specifically the biggest financial regrets of people that have accumulated a lot of wealth. What do you see as most common?
Yeah, I'd say the first one would be maybe delaying or balancing enjoyment or doing things that you really truly like to do, whether that's stuff that requires health and energy, like prioritizing those things when you're younger versus waiting later in life. I think a lot of career trajectories, they require a lot up front in those younger years, and a lot of people will get to the finish line at retirement and wish that they spent more time doing X or whatever it is, now that they have all that money, but now they don't have the energy or whatever it is. So just trying to balance what you need to do at work and then the other things that are also important to you.
No question. And what are some strategies that you've utilized to coach clients into actually taking action on those?
Yeah. I think it's simply just listening and asking them how do you like to spend your time simply. And we do, it's called a values exercise with a lot of clients where we give them a list of, maybe one of them says family or meaningful activity, like all these different values. We have them rank them, and then we ask how fulfilled they are, scale of 1 to 10. If it's not a 10, what do they have to change to get to a 10? And it just sparks good conversation on what matters most to them. And we kind of reframe, like, how are you spending your time now? What would have to change to get more in line with what you're saying is important to you?
Awesome. Okay. Well, Jamison, what do you think number 2 would be?
Yeah, I'd say understanding just like the importance of time and how fast time goes. Time's, your only non-renewable resource. And we hear a lot that people say they spent too much time working or on things that weren't as important in their life. And they put things to the side that, were most important to them and get, sure they've accumulated a lot of wealth, but they look back and have a lot of regrets with how they spent their time.
What advice would you give to like a younger client that has like huge aspirations of building wealth and having a successful career, and how would you, frame that?
I guess first thing would be figure out what's most important to you. If it's, family or health, working, whatever it is, and spend your time on that. Don't build it with sacrificing the other things that are important to you.
You got to balance the securing the future with having no regrets, looking now and living a present life. So it's a tough one. I think every successful person struggles with, for sure.
For people with kids, I've heard you share a statistic with like a ruler.
80% of your time, they say 80% of your time spent by the time the kids are 18. With the time you have with your kids is basically 80% of it's gone by the time they're out of the house and into college. So, a lot of people are so focused on legacy for their kids or building up their career, but then they spend so much time in their career and accumulating money, and then they basically never saw their kids, and then it's tough to see them after the fact because the relationship's not strong enough. So that's one that's you definitely don't want to mess up.
Sure. Yeah, thought that was relevant with the time.
When I heard this thing, I didn't really understand it, but it's like time gets faster as you age, because like think about the first 25 years of your life. 25 is like 100% of your life, but then like when you're 50, 25 years is 50% of your time. So it like technically speeds up.
I've always heard that time goes by quicker when you're older. I feel that.
Yeah.
Time flies by in my 30s a lot quicker than it did in my 20s.
Just flies by when you're having fun.
Exactly. Okay. Well, what's next? I would say tax planning would be a big one. So a lot of people are so focused on, throughout their accumulation years, saving taxes. A lot of times they let the tax, lead the way. And so, you get to retirement and priorities change. If you start spending money, like unwinding income out of a portfolio instead of a paycheck, like it can put you right back in the highest tax bracket if you don't have a strong, at least a third of your net worth, we say, in something that's tax-free, whether that's Roth or basis on a brokerage account or tax loss harvest you've done in a direct index account. So I would say that's a huge regret we've seen in people that have overaccumulated in pre-tax money, is not doing tax planning along the way that's forward thinking, not just like, how do we save the most on this year's tax return?
I think that one's tricky because sometimes the intention's right. Like we'll sometimes be working with outside tax preparers or CPAs, and a lot of people are just looking at the here and now, and so they think they're doing the right things. They're like, oh, I saved 20 grand on my taxes this year, but they don't know that they're building like a snowball that's gonna at some point we'll have to unwind it, and there's kind of a bigger problem later.
No question. Okay. Well, what's next, Chris?
I don't know if it's necessarily hand in hand with what you were saying about like the time that you get with kids, but this is more speaking to what I feel is like if you're financially independent and you know that you're going to leave money to the next generation, you could probably use the help when they're raising their own families rather than, when they're in their 50s or 60s and, they're retiring themselves. So I think trying to look at like the family plan, is there a way that you can achieve your retirement goals and help the next generation to, just live a better life?
I guess it'd be transitioning values and wisdom and knowledge versus just like accumulating wealth, right?
Or efficiently like using everything. Like if you know you're going to gift this money, like why wait? Like if there's going to be a sizable legacy, like why are you waiting 30 years whenever?
Yeah, if you have the kid when you're 30 and then you die when you're 90, your kid's 60.
Yeah. Right.
Whereas they probably need the money more when they're
also a fine line, I guess, with like helping versus enabling.
There's a lot of families we work with like that, like let's say doctors, or kids become doctors, and there's like no question of motivation. They go through college and the parents have done they've lived a good life, but they've also accumulated a good net worth. But like statistically, like they're probably in the top 25% of where they should be based upon what their income was and what they saved. They were like disciplined, but not like obsessed with like achieving this high net worth. They just like, they secured the future, secured their kids' college. We see their kids have successful careers because that usually means they put a lot of work in their job. They put a lot of work in at home with their kids and like taught their kids accountability, discipline, whatnot. But then what we see is an interesting dynamic is the clients that have achieved like top 1% net worths have probably gone way out of their way, tons of sacrifices, but the time involved with building that usually means less involvement, maybe with the kids and like the values or the wisdom. And so then what we see play out is that sometimes, not always, is that those kids, they don't necessarily have as much motivation. So then the parents created this wealth saying, I just want to take care of the legacy of my kids. But then what that did was it created this kind of pathway for the kids to not have to work. And so they don't have successful careers, and then they kind of become dependent on that money. And then what happens is you think like the parents think, oh, the money's going to fix it all. That actually creates a much bigger issue on the table. And then kind of introducing this concept of like the drama triangle. Very interesting concept, like basically like savior, persecutor, victim. So like maybe the parents kind of played like the savior role. Like they built this like huge amount of net worth saying, I'm just going to like take care of everybody. And then when the kids, maybe they're 30 and the parents are sick of them, they funded college, they funded like the first house, they funded all this stuff. And then the kids are like kind of like failure to launch, like they're 30 and asking like for the 15th time for more money. Then the parents have to shift from like maybe some accountability, but to the kids who've gotten this free ride the whole time, the parents then shift from the savior role to like persecutor because the kids aren't used to that accountability, and then it puts the kids in a victim, and then everyone kind of bounces between those three roles. So I found that's a very interesting concept, highly applicable to like the high net worth family dynamics, a lot that we work with. And so I think the goal is like avoiding being on that triangle at all costs. So like, yeah, work hard, create a net worth, but like don't play a savior, like provide, but don't enable. Keep accountable, don't like overcorrect. And so to do that, like it takes a lot of work and calibration, I think, along the way to accumulate all your financial goals, but also to keep the kids accountable, and how can they handle adversity by themselves? That can be a gift as well. Letting them learn that from a young age as well. So very interesting concept. I think the higher net worth, the higher applicability that concept comes into play that we see on a day-to-day basis. And now that we're moving into, we just introduced trust services, so we're going to be, part of those conversations more often. And so we've started to see that play out a lot more. But if you're already on that triangle, like, how do you get off as quickly as possible? And maybe it's some uncomfortable 6 to 12 month pathway to kind of recalibrate the boundaries of a relationship between parents and kids. But I think it's a very important one, because we see a lot of people kind of float through that maybe for 20 or 30 years. And then that's, I would say, the biggest financial regret of like super high net worth people is like, they just wish they can't take the money with them. They just wish they had a better family. I think that triangle fits pretty squarely into that. So, not questioning like creating a big net worth, that's fine as a goal, but I think it has to have the right reasons behind it, or else it's gonna do more bad than good. And a lot of people think that it will just fix everything, and it's really just gonna create the problems you already have. It's just gonna magnify them even greater. So, okay, what's the next one?
Letting your health deteriorate.
How do you see that play out from a financial planning perspective?
Everything gets in front of their health, so they just kind of put exercise. I mean, it's easy to work a lot and say I don't have time to exercise, or work a lot, you're busy, you don't have time to eat healthy, or it's not possible to get 8 hours of sleep in. And so all of these things take precedent over health. And then sure, you probably end up accumulating a lot of wealth, but then if you get to a point where you have millions and millions of dollars saved and your health goes, you're in your 60s, 70s, and your health goes, and you never get to enjoy it, then it's like, why'd you do all that?
Any ways that you plan for that proactively with younger or even clients that are retired? You can't just say, hey, you're not healthy, but like, how do you navigate those conversations?
You got to ask the right questions to figure out like what's important to them and what you can kind of figure out what their stressors are. I mean, you just ask people things and they'll start talking, so if they tell you that they wish they were like, it's pretty easy to figure out if health is not a priority and it should be. So if they tell it to you, and then okay, well, you have enough money and we're talking about how you can spend more money and you're not, so how do we deploy that to...
So if Chris was your client, you wouldn't be asking him what his blood pressure or VO2 max is?
No, I'd refer him to a doctor to do that.
Oh, okay. So there are boundaries in play. Okay, that's
I would just try to be like, well, you ask them figure out what their stressors are, and if health is one of them. Well, I mean, yeah, and then yeah,
give a quick intro, because I think that's a good representation of someone's health, right?
The older you get, the lower percentile of VO2 max that you're in, it like is like a multiplier of your mortality risk. So like, if you're in the top 1% of VO2 max or something, as you age, you have like a 10 times less likely chance of dying the next year or something. I can't remember the exact statistic, but it's like one of the biggest metrics that like can show you, hey, what's your probability of dying the next year as you get older. But basically, essentially what it is like your the max that the test is you go run on a treadmill to like exhaustion, and you have a heart rate monitor on it. It sees how high your like heart and your cardiovascular system can push. So it's like your top limit.
When I did it, was the bike with like a mask.
Oh yeah, you can do that too. Yeah, anything
that works too.
Yeah, bike, treadmill.
The Whoop tracks it too.
So what's
yours? Just checking. Mine's in the top 25%.
Top 1%.
Top 25. I think it's the top 10. Been slacking on the cardio recently.
I gotta find that statistic. That
No, but it's good. I think in general, like some of those are good metrics for. Obviously, we're not doctors, but like we are very passionate about health.
Do you track VO2 max for the families you work with? And
I don't. I should though.
That's not bad. I mean,
it's good. That's a new service offering maybe we could do.
VO2 max testing.
All right. Enough of a tangent here.
You were talking about bringing stethoscopes into meetings, were you? And just do
I don't know if that was me.
A quick wellness check.
Maybe I said that at one point.
Okay. Chris, what's next? You get back on track here.
The last one I had was lifestyle creep in comparison. So I think with we work with a lot of physicians and people in medicine that like the path is delayed gratification. Like you put all this time into your undergrad, your med school residency. If you do a fellowship, it's a lot of years, and then over that time frame, your income 10x's, you know, or big jump at least, and you have a new social circle. And I think Jamison, you've spoke to this, like people, like ultimately you want to fit in with the crowd, and maybe you can speak to this a little more, but like you see your friends, your colleagues, like they have big houses, nice cars, country clubs, like whatever it is. You know, maybe they delay a meeting with a team early and they just want to get settled, but getting settled means like filling their budget up with all these big ticket items. So you meet a year later and there's nothing left, and you're making $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, and you feel like you're paycheck to paycheck. So
Yeah, for thousands of years, humans have you've wanted to fit into a tribe. So you're doing everything to let's think like thousands of years ago. If you didn't, if the people in your community didn't like you, you would literally die. You'd like, get mauled by a bear or like something because you were the outlier. And so we're wired to fit into the tribe, and you want status. Status before money. Status was how you were like, you were important. And so that's hardwired in our DNA. So we spend our money on things that give us status and want people to like us, which is the house, the car, the clothes.
What's interesting is you're going to have all this way too high of a net worth than you need potentially in retirement, and without a purpose behind that, it could lead to a lot of other issues as well. So I think the purpose of this is there's always life's hard. Like no one escapes the human experience. I think the concept of like you have to choose your hard. So your hard could be working your butt off now to like accumulate this high net worth. The hard could be, starting a business, going through medical school, whatever it is, but you have to choose it because no matter what you do, if your kids have a free ride, like they're going to have a hard life later because they're going to lack the motivation. You have to choose like which hard, and the hard that you do choose needs to have a purpose behind it. So it's worth it. But I think the biggest solution to all of this is having really like in-depth conversations of like what is your purpose, what's your mission, what are the values for your family, and letting that lead the way. Because without those conversations, like life can just kind of call shotgun for you, and before you know it, you're in the situation in your life that like you're not happy. So I think a good part of a financial plan can help address, because and the reality is like we're not psychologists here, but we do see money is one of the, if not the biggest stressor in America. And so a good financial plan, it should reframe that so your money is supporting your life by design, which is removing stress, removing regret, and making sure you're living a present life and secure in the future, right? If you hit all those goals, but you can't put that, something like that cannot be put on autopilot, is what we found. It's not like, here's a plan, follow this, 10%, increase 1% every day. It's not going to do it, because humans are emotional, different relationships ebb and flow. It's got to be calibrated consistently, but you have to have all these like parts of it dialed in to make sure that you do reach those goals. No regret, future secured, etc. But yeah, our biggest goal for all of our clients is like obviously security now and in the future. But the other balance I think is not talked about in financial planning is how do we live a life without regret? And that is challenging people not just to save, but how they should be designing lifestyle today. So those are my closing remarks. But Jamison, Chris, any other thoughts?
I'm trying to find this VO2 max stat real quick. It's like if you're in the top 20, I've read this, if you're in the top 25%, it reduces your all-cause mortality by 50%.
You're in the 25, right, Matt?
Yeah. What does that mean?
All-cause mortality is death of any cause, like for any reason. You're reducing it by 50%.
I'm good for 12 months is what you're saying.
50% higher chance of, or lower chance of dying, yeah. And then it's like multiplies as you get older. So like the older you are, that I think this is what it is. The older you are, the higher your risk of 1 year all-cause mortality. So like us, the risk, the probability that we die in the next 12 months is low. The probability that someone that's 90 years old dies in the next 12 months is very high.
So someone at 90 with a high VO2 max.
It's like a
Gotcha.
multiplier, because like if you're,
Is it one of those things where if you have a good VO2 max, that's going to be easier to carry, kind of like muscle mass in your 20s carries with you for the rest of your life?
I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that.
I feel like the VO2, the test is pretty intensive, so they get a 90-year-old
You
on
did
the
it,
bike.
right?
Yeah.
I don't know, but the 90-year-old probably doesn't have to get to full-on exhaustion, right? Because like
Imagine me 90 on that bike.
that's
just
what I'm
going
saying.
crazy.
Like you getting to full-on exhaustion versus them, or maybe they just can't, and that puts them in like the 25th percent. I don't know.
That's my goal. Make it to 90 and put that mask on and go crazy on that assault bike. We'll put that as a podcast episode if I last that long. Just me testing my VO2 max, Jamison cheering me on in the background.
Yes. Anyway, takeaway. Get your VO2 max tested.
No, I think this is an important tangent though, because the one thing, like when we do those values exercise, Chris, that you mentioned, we see stuff all over the map. But I would say if we went and looked at like 90% of those conversations, health was part of every one of those.
Oh yeah.
And that is probably by far the number one regret. Is like to have a successful career, it takes a lot of sacrifice. And one of the first things that goes out the door is health, right? Because like most people, it's like, I want to provide my family, and I also want to spend time with my family. And then your health, like exercise, and just like when do you have time for that?
Oh, Brian Johnson.
I watched the documentary, but I was like, it's a little too much for me.
He claims, because like I don't know if he had an exit for like $800 million. And before, when he was doing all that, he wasn't healthy. Like he was he almost committed suicide. Like he was just like very unhealthy. And he claims now that, and it's interesting now that he's like a billionaire, almost a billionaire. He says this. I don't know what the answer is, but he claims now if he would have focused on his sleep, exercise, and health, he would have made more money while he was doing all that. It's hard to tell because like
I don't know.
But
But someone like that, all he does is focus on health. So it's like, is he living a life?
he claims he's the most happy he's ever been.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's on social media. That's his highlight reel. We got to get him an interview and ask him.
Yeah, he's real extreme. Like you said, it's all he does. But I just bought his olive oil. We can go. We don't need to go on this tangent. But he claims that like it's really hard to get well sourced.
But his marketing is working.
Yeah, but if
For
you
sure,
I
'cause
actually did
Jamison
some,
buying
I
$800
just did some
$800
research
million
on this.
dollars.
It's really hard to find most olive oil you buy in the store is like garbage. Like it's not like well sourced. It's like, and so he looked around and he couldn't find well sourced olive oil, so he just made his own. I don't know. I figured I'd
Interesting.
try it. Yeah.
I got a couple of bottles in this Italy vineyard I went to.
Yeah, that might be good.
They showed me that, how they grow it and stuff. Hope it's legit.
But that's the one thing, speaking of health, is like the oils that are like not well sourced. It can really mess you up.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I mean, I think that that Brian Johnson example is really good though, because it's like a lot of people think if I have money, it's going to solve all these issues, but like he's saying, no, in $800 million, and like, yeah. So it's very interesting conversations. But I think my takeaway for all of this is like there's, again, no one escapes emotions, no one escapes human experience. Like no matter rich, poor, middle class, it doesn't matter. Like everyone needs to have an intentional thought process behind their plan and make sure that they're balancing like the most important things in life. Because if you don't do that, and life the time kind of fills the gaps, and other people's agendas kind of fill your plan doesn't become your plan. That's the worst thing. There's no intention, I think, is the worst thing when it comes to your finances. So, all right, we'll catch you next week. Thanks for joining our VO2 Max episode.